Same players, big boy. I'm telling you right now, that's awesome. I love it. That's the finish.
You get a layup to take it, and an and one.
Fly ball. Out of here.
Welcome, everyone, to the third season of the Bracket Report, a production of Delphi Bracketology. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni, the sponsor of the club at Delphi High School. Joining me today are senior Cade Nelson and junior Cayden Gasser. Make sure you follow all of our work at our website, delphibracketology.com, and follow us on Twitter at Delphi Brackets. We like to interact with our followers and let you know everything you need to know about the NCAA basketball tournament. So as we start a new season, we're going to explain the process of bracketing. 68 total teams are selected for the NCAA men's tournament. 32 of those teams have to win a conference tournament to receive an auto-qualifying bid. And then 36 other teams are selected by the NCAA committee for what's called an at-large bid. Our job at Delphi Bracketology is to attempt to help you, our followers, and our viewers to understand which teams are most likely to be selected and then what seed line they will be placed on by the committee. Seed lines are numbered 1 through 16, and then those seeds are matched up for the early round games that you fill out in your bracket pool at your business the Monday after the announcement. The NCAA committee uses a net ranking, which is an algorithm that includes offense and defensive efficiency numbers and team strength and road record to give quality rankings to every win and loss in the NCAA. These quad 1, 2, 3, and 4 wins and just quad records overall, you will hear us refer to them all season. So, Cade, being the veteran, what do you find the most difficult about moving teams up and down or putting teams in and out of the bracket?
For the most difficult thing about this whole process, I would probably say is just trying to see what the committee will value most year to year, whether that'll be the amount of quad 1 wins the team has or the amount of road wins or the net, and just trying to decide whether it's all those things combined or just one thing that'll push a team up or down a seed line.
We had a really good discussion on the way down about some outliers, teams with this good net ranking versus bad records, and teams with good records but not such a good net. And those are all things we try to figure out. The human element of the committee is tough because it changes. The committee members change frequently and what they emphasize. And so it's a human guessing game a little bit, but we try to do the best that we can. Cayden, this is you had a nice run last year. We should have listened to you with Wisconsin being a 3 seed last year. You were pushing for that, and we didn't take your advice. But what do you find the most difficult thing about studying all of this data and trying to predict the 68 teams?
Well, keeping your bias is kind of hard. Like Wisconsin, I always voted for, but even the smaller teams that make a big bang, you don't know where to place them because they don't really play big teams in their conference. It's harder to place them.
You were talking about Houston on the way down and looking at their information, and they don't play in a conference where they're going to get a lot of these quad 1 wins. So how do you compare them to the top teams? We have Houston as a top team right now, but, man, they won't have the quality or the quantity of wins that – your Arizonas, your Purdue's, other teams on the 1 seed line. So let's begin with a State of Indiana report. We will talk to you about the teams in Indiana that are likely to be in and teams that have some work to do to get in. But, Cade, start us off with the Purdue Boilermakers, who are off to a great start.
Yeah, they are off to a great start, and some would say that they're the best team in the country right now, although they are ranked 3rd in the country, Hoosiers alike, and West Lafayette abiders would say that they're the best. They're also on our number 1 seed line right now with the 5th net, and they only have 1 loss with 4 solid wins against Gonzaga, Ohio State, West Virginia, and Duke. And that 1 loss that they do have was at home against Rutgers, and that is what, to me, kind of scares me about Purdue, is their ability to win games against the solid Big Ten teams that they'll need to win those games to make their resume stronger. And I think they have all the ability in the world to be able to win those games. But I would like to see them win a couple of these early ones by maybe 10 or 12 just to have some more security.
I think Purdue's poised to be in the top 2 or 3 seeds all year long. Right now they're a solid number 1 because of their wins. The Big Ten's going to be a grind. So I think I would be surprised if they fall out of the top 4 by any means. Their resume is pretty solid. The Indiana Hoosiers, close to home for me, started out okay. We're probably 4, 5, 6 seed with some big wins against Xavier and North Carolina. Those wins will not go away, but boy, they've run into a little bit of a problem here in the last month with several losses, and so now they're sitting at 10-5. We have dropped them down to about the 10 or 11 seed line. We had them at 11 when we got ready for the show this morning. We talked. They're going to be at 10 or 11 where they sit right now, and we don't predict what's going to happen. But we also have to be realistic with 2 starters out for the Indiana Hoosiers that they might get a few more losses. So those wins right now keep them in. It's just you'll see some people have Indiana at an 8 or a 9. We have them as an 11 because there's a bunch of teams right now that are in that middle pack, and their record would push them down. So they have some work to do while these people are injured in order to make the tournament. And then we have a couple smaller schools, Cayden, that are doing well. And I don't know that they'll get in that large bid. They might have to win their conference tournament, but these 2 teams are doing well.
Yeah, Indiana State and Ball State are doing amazing. Indiana State starts out with a 13-4 record. Their leading scorer is McCauley. He's got 16.9, and they got 2 assisters getting 10.8 and 10.6 points each. They're first in the conference, which is 6-0. It's just amazing how they're playing. Ball State, 11-4 record. Points are evenly spread: 14-4, 14-3, 13.2, and 12.7. They're tied for the MAC conference at 2-0 for the conference record, and their turnover to assist ratio is amazing this year, being much higher than 1-to-1.
So you have a couple in-state schools that are playing well, winning games. They're in conferences that are usually one bid conference. Now the Missouri Valley sometimes gets multiple bids. There's a couple teams, Toledo, Akron, in the MAC that could be considered to be at large, and Ball State is really pushing to maybe be one of those teams. It's highly unlikely that these teams get in unless they win their conference tournament, but we're going to keep an eye on both Indiana State and Ball State because they're playing solid basketball. So we'd like to welcome you to a new college hoops season and a bracketology season. Stick with us after the break, and we'll discuss teams across the country and how they've fared so far this season.
Ball here. Harris scores. With 19 seconds left. Fake players, big boy. I'm telling you right now, that's awesome. I love it. That's the finish.
You get a layup to take it, and an and one.
For the ultimate Wi-Fi experience, you need a managed Wi-Fi service with advanced Blast Wi-Fi. Blast Wi-Fi systems provide ultimate coverage, ultimate performance, and ultimate power all the time. Available from Mulberry Telecommunications, Blast Wi-Fi systems feature the latest Wi-Fi 6 technology and are equipped with unrivaled bandwidth and 4 times more simultaneous connections so you can connect tons of devices throughout your home with no lag and no downtime. Plus, with 24/7 support and remote troubleshooting, you can rest assured that Mulberry Telecommunications is always here to help you should any issues arise. It's the ultimate Wi-Fi experience, and it's a blast. Blast Wi-Fi is now included with Mulberry Telecommunications fiber internet packages. Contact Mulberry Telecommunications at 296-2885 today to get started.
Welcome back to the Bracket Report. I'm Brian Tonsoni. I'm here alongside Cade Nelson and Cayden Gasser, and we're going to talk brackets. So we always select teams as if the season were ending immediately. We mentioned in the previous segment no prediction of who's going to win games down the road. So we look at your resume or a team's resume as it is right now. So here we go with our top 4 seeds, and I'll ask our panelists to comment on them. Right now, our number 1 seeds are Kansas, Purdue, Houston, and Connecticut. Cade, what stands out to you about our number 1 seed line?
I mean, the main thing that stands out to me is the amount of wins that they have. It's crazy to see that, these teams are playing so well with the little amount of losses that they've taken, and those losses being to very solid teams that they'll see again later on in the season. But just the ability to continue to win games and build upon those wins and build as a team will be really good for them come March when they have to play those more important conference games that they need to build their resume.
And then on our 2 seed line, we have Arizona, Alabama, Tennessee, and UCLA. And Cayden, I think there's a couple teams that could push for the number 1. What are the top teams there on that 2 seed line as you see it?
I see it as Alabama is one of the better teams in that 2 seed line. They beat Houston. Houston is having a great year, but they don't have any more anybody to play. UCLA is playing great. They don't have many quad 1 games as like the rest of them, but they still have 3-2 there, and they're having a great season.
So UCLA has 3 quad 1 wins. Tennessee has 2. They're at the bottom of that 2 seed line. Arizona has 5 quad 1 wins, which matches some of the teams on our 1 seed line. So there's an example of the quad system at work. Our 3 seed line: Texas, Kansas State, Gonzaga, and Xavier. And for me, the surprise is Gonzaga is usually a 1 or a 2 seed sitting there at the 3 seed line. Gonzaga has 2 quad 1 wins compared to, again, Kansas with 6, Purdue with 5. So that's why Gonzaga is sitting at the 3 line. Cade, a surprise team for me is Xavier, despite losing to Indiana early, or they've really come on and won some games. They're 2-3 in quad 1, but 5-0 in quad 2. And sometimes we combine those records. So you look at Xavier, they have 7 wins against the top teams on their record. What do you think about our 3 seed line?
I think our 3 seed line is very strong, and you were mentioning Xavier's wins in that. But I think one of the things that stands out to me for Xavier is that they're 4-0 on the road. And the ability to win on the road when having the home court advantage in college basketball is so crucial. That just shows to me that they're a very strong team that is able to handle pressure well and beat the better teams even when they're not in a comfortable place at their own home.
So Cade brings up another thing for you, the viewer, to watch is road wins. That seems to be important, especially when it comes to selection and seed. And so the road record is very important. You take a look at UCLA on our 2 seed line. They have 4 wins on the road. Houston has 4 wins on the road early on in the season. Those sometimes will break ties or move team up a seed line or down a seed line. That's an excellent point. So rounding out our top 4 seeds, we have Duke, another traditionally high-seeded team, but we have them on the 4 seed line with Iowa State, Virginia, and Providence is somewhat of a surprise team. That last line on the 4 seed is really difficult. We have some teams, Marquette could be in there. There's some other teams that could possibly be in that line. Arkansas, also Miami of Florida has a lot of quad 1 wins that could be in that 4 seed line. Cayden, any thoughts about the 4 seed line?
Duke is a great team. It's just really hard to push them up anymore with their net at 22. It's hard to push anyone up with a higher net. We don't know how much the people are going to take how serious the nets are, so we got to make sure we have that in check.
So what Cayden's talking about, and we talked about this on the way down too, is the net ranking is important. We think the NCAA committee uses it appropriately, but there are outliers. And a lot of times when you see the top 2 seed lines, they're not double-digit seed lines. Last year, I think a 13 and an 11 crept up into the 2 seed line. So we have this debate. Is it wins? Is it the net? Is it a combination? Is it road wins? But Duke only has 1 quad 2 game, so they're really 3-4, under 500 against the top teams that they're playing. That's why Duke right now is a little bit lower. And that net of 22 also, as Cayden says, keeps them down. So now we're going to have a segment often, teams moving up and teams moving down. And what we do, sometimes winning doesn't automatically move you up and losing doesn't automatically move you down, but it's in comparison. Does a win now move you ahead of the resumes around you? And so we're going to look at a few teams that are moving up in our bracket midway through the NCAA tournament. And the team for me is the Clemson Tigers. Brad Brownell, an Indiana guy, coached at Wright State. One of my favorite coaches to follow, is in a tough situation. Been at Clemson a long time. He was on the hot seat, maybe still is on the hot seat. But, boy, they're turning around a team and winning quite a few games. We have them as a 7 or an 8 seed, probably more likely an 8 seed, but they're 13-3. They have 3 quad 1 wins and a quad 2 win, so 4-1 in the top 2 quad system. But, guys, Cayden said that they're a 54 net. That's going to keep them in the 7, 8, 9 seed range. But Clemson is moving from a team that we weren't considering in November or December. They're moving up now to an 8 seed. Cayden, who do you have as a team that is moving up?
Xavier's playing great. Like Cade said earlier, they're 4-0 on the road. They have a very convincing win against UConn, undefeated in their conference, and they only lost to like a 6 and 8 seed. Their record is 13-3 right now. They're looking good.
Cade, who's your team that is moving up?
My team that I believe to move up would be Kansas State. They're on an 8-game streak right now, and over that time they won 2 of those games on the road, and those road games were over the 10-net Texas and 31-net Baylor. And in both those games, they were led by their seniors, a senior guard, Marquise Noel, and Keontae Johnson. I think I pronounced that right. But they combined for 36 points, and that ability to have your seniors lead your team over an 8-game stretch like that to pick up those series of wins is crucial when you're trying to convince a group of 10 or 12 people to move up above a team or someone else.
Interesting story about Kansas State and Keontae Johnson. He collapsed in a game when he was at Florida and has sat out for some time, and a time where we just all witnessed the football situation in Cincinnati with the Buffalo defensive back. And so there was some thought whether this young man was ever going to play basketball again, and he's cleared, and Kansas State took a chance to play him, and he was an all-conference type player at Florida, and he's moved in. And Kansas State has a first-year coach who was an assistant coach for several years at Baylor. So he brings that Baylor mentality, that winning mentality, up to Kansas State. And, boy, they're getting the job done in year one of Jeremy Tang under direction. But Keontae Johnson's a great story. Player health, mental health has been an issue a lot recently in the news. And so we wish Keontae nothing but the best this year. If there are teams that are moving up, there are also teams that are moving down, and we're going to tell you who's going to need to get back on track. And number one for me is Duke. Duke is usually a 1 or a 2 seed. They're not anointed to be there every year, but they're usually a top team. And when you go on the road and lose to North Carolina State, I think it was 18, 19 points. It just was a blowout from the start. That hurts your net ranking, and we talked about their net ranking of 22. But then they followed up and barely win on the road at Boston College. They're not playing good basketball right now. They have an opportunity, obviously, in conference. I think they're not in any doubt of making the tournament, but where they're going to be seated, if they're at the 4 or 5, that's a little bit tougher than their normal 1 seed. So Duke is on the decline. Cade?
My team that's moving down is Baylor, and they've dropped the last 3 games, with 2 of them being at home. I just talked about the Kansas State game that they dropped, but their quad 1 and 2 record is 3-5, and that factor of the whole process that we're doing is something that we look at heavily. And the fact that they've had that many opportunities to get solid wins and they've dropped all those games is kind of the same thing that happened to Houston last year. Houston's net was a lot better than Baylor's, with Baylor's net being 31. But just the fact that, they're playing in these big games and they have the chance to get these solid wins, and they're just coming up short. We can't really move them up if they're not getting those quality wins.
And Cade, one of the things in Cayden that we have trouble dealing with is injuries. I know their point guard has been out. We talked about Indiana's injuries. The committee does take player availability into consideration, and every member of the committee is assigned a committee or a conference or 2 or 3 conferences to watch specifically their games, and they report out when they meet to make this selection. They report out on how teams are playing, who was available, who wasn't. And one of the, I think, mistakes we all make is a win and a loss is a loss, regardless of who's playing. But you want to look at what team is going to be available in March. Are the injured players going to come back? And was there a big impact, a 3-week, 4-week impact that changes the resume, that the team was good before an injury, then they were bad when the injury was the player was out, and then they were good again? That's when the committee makes an adjustment in their evaluation, not game by game, this guy's out, and discounting anybody's wins or anybody's losses. Cayden, who do you have on the decline?
Kentucky's going down. They're seated at 46 right now, which is not good for what they've been doing. They haven't played any good. When they do play good teams, they've been losing. They played a 2, 7, and 16 seed, and they lost by a combined total of 52 points. That's a lot. They've been blown out multiple. Alabama, they blown out by 26. Yeah,
Coach Cal's getting a little heat down there in Kentucky right now with all the recruits that they have. They are not in our bracket right now. They are out. And so some teams moving up, moving down. There's our top 4 seeds, but the college basketball season's beginning conference play. The resumes of these teams will be developed over the next 2 months, and it depends on how many quality wins each team will get. So each week we'll present new comparisons between teams, resulting in some interesting moves by our committee. So stay with us here after the break. We'll discuss the Big Ten, a few teams that are on the bubble, and some games to watch going forward here on the Bracket Report.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
Many communities in rural America are often overlooked as underserved. These communities are being left behind due to lack of internet and access to state-of-the-art technology. That's why Mulberry Telecommunications provides rural broadband services and technology and is growing their presence in north central Indiana. Because every community deserves infrastructure and beyond. To learn more, contact us today.
The ISC Sports Network is your home for sports content across the Hoosier State. Find us live on TV and streaming or archived on our website and our app. The ISC is your one-stop shop for the content you want to see, including high school sports, college sports, and other great events throughout the year. Subscribe to our streaming service and get access to it all. ISC, local lives here.
You are watching the Bracket Report, production of Delphi Bracketology. It's now time for some Big Ten talk because we're here locally in Indiana in the Big Ten country. So I'm just going to run through that now. We'll have more commentary as the time goes on. Purdue is a 1 seed, Ohio State 6, Rutgers a 7, Iowa an 8. We have Michigan State and Wisconsin on the 9 seed line, Illinois a 10, Maryland a 10, Northwestern and Indiana 11, and Penn State and Michigan on the outside, but we're watching. And in all honesty, after this morning's meeting with this group, we feel that we're probably a little tough on the Big Ten. You could probably see some of those seed lines move up if you check out our work by the end of this week. Really, games will make that easier for us too. And then it's to the bubble. These are teams that are the last teams in and the first teams that are out, depending on where you go for bracketology stuff. Hopefully it's DelphiBracketology.com, but you'll see the talk of the bubble. And we just shortened it down to 8 teams, the last 4 in and the first 4 out. So the last 4 in, Utah, Creighton, Arizona State, and Mississippi State. And our first 4 out is Oklahoma, Penn State, Oklahoma State, and Virginia Tech. Cayden, your thoughts about those teams that are really close together in our evaluation Any team that you think should be in or out based on those teams?
Well, we just talked about Penn State and how they're almost there, but they're just not playing well. They don't have very many quad 1 wins. They're tied up there, but they're doing better, but they still got to keep it on.
They're a team to watch for sure. They have 1 quad 1 win. The teams that are in the bubble, they have 2 quad 1 wins except for Creighton, and Creighton dealt with some injuries. That's why we still have Creighton in. Cade, any thoughts here on our bubble teams?
I think that just looking at the list we're looking at now, Creighton, like you said, they've been injured, but they have a great chance to move out of that last 4-in spot with their net being 24. That's a very solid net. And their strength of schedule and non-conference strength of schedule is still very good. The only thing or reason that they're in the last 4-in or that bottom slot of the bracket is just because their lack of wins. And that lack of wins is, one, due to the injuries, but also just due to it being the beginning of the season and seeing that their net is still 24. That means that they have the ability to play good defense and have good offense. So they will get wins as the year goes on, and they're in a very strong conference, so they'll be able to get wins.
That's the point I was just going to make. The conference helps them with the opportunities. I think we're probably a little tough on Creighton there too, to be honest. And we're in the middle of adjusting our evaluation. It really is kicked in since Christmas time, and so we're getting the hang of it too. We rank these teams, and then I have all of the teachers and students kind of tell me where teams should move up and move down, and we're in the process of really figuring that out. So as we end the show, we're going to share with you some games to watch. You can find it on your local cable or wherever you stream. These are games that we think you should tune in to. Tonight, Tuesday, Michigan State at Wisconsin. Both teams want to move up the seed line. North Carolina at Virginia. Both teams safely in. North Carolina could use the win a little bit more. Cade, what do we have on Wednesday?
Tomorrow we have UConn at Marquette, where it'd be great to see UConn get another win. And then Alabama at Arkansas, TCU at Texas, and I think that Alabama-Arkansas game will be a very good game to watch.
And Cayden, Thursday and Friday, we got a couple games to watch.
Thursday you got Utah at UCLA. The winner of that game will be leading the Pac-12. After that, Friday we got Michigan State and Illinois. That won't be a close one. They both only been allowing 65 points, and they're both scoring way over.
Okay, and Cade, what do you got Saturday?
Saturday, we got a long list of games here. We have Kentucky at Tennessee, a good chance for Kentucky to get back in the win column. Wisconsin at Indiana, a foreseeable close Big Ten game. Kansas State at TCU, Iowa State at Kansas, and Duke at Clemson, where that will be a big game for the seed line just because of their nets and a quality of win that they would get.
Chance there for Clemson to really tell people they're here for real. And then Sunday, let's watch Indiana State and Missouri State. The Missouri Valley Conference, the Sycamores are trying to stay. They got another game this week as well, but they're trying to stay on top of the conference, get that number 1 seed in St. Louis in Arch Madness, and get to the tournament for the Sycamores. We're rooting for that. Cade, our new segment here, your game of the week. Let's end on that.
My game of the week this week, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but my game of the week is Alabama at Arkansas. And I think this would be a great game to watch just because Arkansas is a 5 seed with a 16 net. And that's not necessarily the highest you would see a 16 seed or a 16 net. But that definitely leaves room for them to move up just because their net is so solid. And the opportunity they have to be a 2-seeded team that has the 6 net, and especially it being at home for Arkansas, will just make it a much better resume builder for Arkansas to get that win at home and then have confidence going into the rest of the season.
I like that. Cade didn't even ask permission. He just put that on the script, and we just first time I saw it was about 20 seconds ago. That's great work, Cade. Appreciate it. But that'll do it for this episode of the Bracket Report. We thank ISC Sports Network for hosting us and giving us the opportunity. Make sure you check us out on Twitter at Delphi Brackets and our website, DelphiBracketology.com. We just put out a new bracket this morning. We're going to put out a new bracket probably Thursday as well. So I'm Coach Tonsoni, Brian Tonsoni for Cade Nelson and Cayden Ganser. We thank you for watching, and until next week, may your favorite team win some games, win quad 1 and 2 games, and let's win them on the road. We'll see you later.
Ball here. Harris scores. With 19 seconds left. Fake players, big boy. I'm telling you right now, that's awesome. I love it.
You get a layup taken and an and one.